So this is the session about how NatWest transformed, together with Appian, their internal audit function within 6 months. I'm Nikita Knyazev. Nice to meet you all. I work in our Appian Customer Success practice. Before joining Appian, I spent some time in my career in assurance and in audit. And one of the things that I remember was spending lots of time in emails and plans and spreadsheets and trackers and sending all this information to my colleagues and peers and navigating to one tool for one type of audit, another tool for another type of audit. And when I joined Appian and I learned that we have been working with many complex financial institutions and transforming the internal audit functions, I felt that that's exciting. I wanted to be part of that journey. And today I'm excited to talk about how NatWest have successfully done that transformation together with us. It's also exciting to call out that this is the 3rd year in a row that NatWest are here with us at Appian Europe, which is fantastic. Thank you for being our trusted clients and partners. So today we will hear from Stuart Sands, who couldn't unfortunately join us, but we have a message from him. He is the Chief Operating Officer at the audit function. Kevin will kindly join me on the stage to answer some questions. Yeah, we will do that after Stuart's bit. So first, just some backgrounds. This journey started in 2023. At that moment, NatWest had their auditors navigating to various tools, one tool for audit execution, it was an off-the-shelf solution, another tool for planning, and the overall vibe and the atmosphere was that the function needed a much more modern, flexible, and intuitive solution. The degree of buy-in from internal auditors into their landscape was not that high. People were doing various workarounds, doing work outside of the system, and just tracking all of this as well as giving auditors an easy experience was a bit difficult for NatWest to do. They wanted to move fast. They wanted to implement something tangible within 6 months. And for that solution to be flexible, to adapt to the needs, to adapt to the methodology, to evolve as the business evolves, and not be constrained by scheduled releases from a third party. They wanted to have a say in what goes into the solution. They want to define it and be able to enhance and operate it in the way that NatWest wants. Driving collaboration and bringing auditors back into that single solution was one of the important drivers, because auditors were spending lots of the time in other tools and places, and bringing them together was critical. Appian brought the right technology and the right expertise to help NatWest solve this challenge. We have a flexible orchestration platform that allows our clients to, at pace, implement delightful state-of-the-art solutions. And we have done internal audit implementations across complex organizations, so I was a perfect match to solve this problem. Just a few words about the landscape itself. There are around 450 to 70 auditors in the function, primarily based in the UK, navigating to various systems, and the main solution that they were using was an off-the-shelf solution. These are the highlights of the delivery itself. Within 6 months, Appian and NatWest delivered a productionized, minimal viable product solution, which was released in July this year, and between July and now went through 2 more phases, 2 more iterations of additional value for the business. The solution provides the end-to-end workflow for the entire audit management capability, starting with an audit universe. So that's where their internal auditors navigate to define their organizational structure against which they can then perform their audit planning, annual planning, and risk assessments. Then go into the specific risk assessments that are tailored to specific risks and the types of the audit universe line items. Choose the likelihoods, impacts, and all the other pertinent questions. Assess the level of risk. Based on that level of risk, then decide what goes into the annual audit plan, schedule that plan, take it through approvals, validate it, baseline it, but also have some degree of flexibility moving between the stages. Field work is the biggest area where audit is performed and where users actually navigate to perform their day-to-day work. what works well in our experience for auditors in this context is giving them flexible tools such as delivery checklists, capabilities to move between stages back and forth, and one of our clients' favorites, an ability to mark up and comment on the content within the tool itself to mimic other technologies that they are very familiar with. After field work, the solution takes the auditors into managing exceptions and findings. There's also a capability to surface issues from other solutions to compare and contrast and make decisions on the audit plan. And then report within the solution itself. So our auditors can literally take an Appian interface, show it to their stakeholders and have a conversation about the reporting. There's not much need to generate massive documents and decks. You can just use the Appian solution itself. This was done within 6 months, including a full data migration of the audit universe, of issues and prior engagements from at least the past 2 years from the off-the-shelf system. And it was successfully rolled out to the community of 450 auditors. NatWest wanted to do it at a certain pace, implement fast, but roll out gradually to the individual stakeholder communities. And they performed it through things such as hackathons, shows and tells, and we'll hear a bit more about that from Stuart and later from Kevin. The key success factors and outcomes of this journey are best described through a genuine and transparent partnership that our teams formed together. NatWest, of course, had a vision that they wanted to achieve, but it's fair to say that the internal audit function were new to implementing systems. That's not what they do on a day-to-day basis. Appian brought in the expertise in the solution itself, but also the subject matter expertise of having done this as global financial institutions. And we were able, in January 2024, to form a very effective blended team that went into Sprint Zero and following a proven iterative, collaborative, and partner-like approach, define the MVP, implement it fast, migrate the data, and then show and delight it to the users. That also meant that we were collaborating together very effectively on priorities, defining the immediate ones as well as longer-term ones. Helping our clients understand a bit more about the agile delivery method. Again, because for our product owner and some of our stakeholders, that was new, and there was a bit of a learning curve from that side. The main outcome, as Stuart will call out in the video in a second, is a very flexible, intuitive, agile, and adaptable solution. NatWest can take it in any direction they see fit. They can adapt it to their evolving methodology. They can plan further releases and not feel constrained by any other technology blockers. There is also agility not only in the solution itself, but also in the method that it has been delivered. So internal audit were able to organize themselves into release roadmaps and plan the features that they want to deliver with Appian as well as with NatWest Internal Center of Excellence. The feedback has been fantastic. We have heard that auditors found the solution very intuitive. One of my favorites was someone said that I didn't know that our old system was that bad until I saw Appian, which was quite an interesting characteristic. NatWest moved into performing the 2025 audit plan. They also started performing some of the engagements already in the new solution, and it's now being widely adopted and rolled out. So that's the highlights of the story, and now I'd like to show what our sponsor Stuart wanted to say. Oh, before I do that, just as a brief reminder, Appian has 4 specific traits that are relevant for delivery of compliance and internal audit solutions. We bring the flexible orchestration platform, which you have heard about in the keynote a second ago. We bring a proven partnership approach. We help our clients solve their problem, understand, and genuinely care about the outcomes. We bring our customer success delivery method, where we form blended elite teams together with our clients to deliver the solutions. And we bring expertise. We have done it across 6 global financial institutions. And we know how to approach the compliance and internal audit landscape. With that in mind, let's hear from our sponsor, Stuart.
I am Stuart Sands. I'm the Chief Auditor at NatWest Group, responsible for our professional practices and our internal audit transformation programme. As part of that transformation programme, we're seeking to change from an off-the-shelf system to a system that would give us greater adaptability in terms of the way in which we audited. And that resulted in us working with Appian to develop a low-code audit system. So we started prior to the system build, we undertook what we called auditor journeys, which were essentially very focused sessions with differing levels and roles within our audit teams. Really trying to capture the pain points they were experiencing in the current system, but also to capture some of the aspirations that they would want to achieve. And so that essentially gave us an overarching storyboard that then allowed us, when we moved into the build of the system, to develop stories from those auditor journeys and then refine from there. If I were looking back at it and doing it again, I would probably take essentially another sprint or 2 sprints to actually just build up a slight backlog of those stories, which would just make it easier on both our team as a business team and the Appian team to give us some flexibility around where we would build. And I think probably the investment of that extra 2 to 4 weeks in elongating the process would just smooth the process in general. We were aggressive in terms of setting a timescale to have a minimum viable product within 6 months. We did it, and we were really successful in terms of what we ended up with. Could we have made it slightly easier on the teams by taking another 3 to 4 weeks to build up that backlog? The vision was for us to have an audit system that gave us far greater adaptability in terms of how we worked and how we could evolve as an audit function. The limitation of an off-the-shelf system was essentially that we would have to wait for future releases, and even those would be subject to essentially a wider population of clients dictating what those developments might actually be for that system. The vision for us was to be able to essentially define what we wanted to meet the needs of our users completely, and be able to change our requirements as we evolved. And I think that's particularly important now as we see new technologies coming out. We see far more changes in the environment that we're trying to audit, that actually we need to be sufficiently adaptable. So from an onboarding perspective, actually, one of the real visions that we also had, and why we thought moving to the Appian system and a low-code build, was that we would be able to onboard a lot more easily by building a more intuitive system, by building a user interface that actually worked well, and also by building in things such as workflows. You create a system that is easier to use, and therefore actually you have more enthusiasm from users to use, and therefore from an onboarding perspective, that's almost the key to it. So the outcome was for us to have a flexible, easy to use system that mirrored the way in which we wanted to work, and that would allow us to continue to evolve the way in which we worked without and be essentially the masters of our own destiny. In terms of dictating where we wanted to go with that. So from that point of view, that was one of the other outcomes that we really wanted to have, was something that felt familiar to our users, such that we would encourage them to use it day to day. And again, those have been real bonuses that we've been having very positive feedback on up until now. One of the reasons why we went with Appian was the experience that the team already had in building similar applications for other organizations of our size. But I think actually when I look at that, we recognize that benefit, absolutely, and that that was exceptionally important. And so the team have been excellent. I think the risk in all of these kind of programs, and especially for me and my team, was that we had not built a system before. So we were essentially novices at this. And so there's always that potential risk that we're dealing with technical experts, we're business experts, but how do the two actually integrate to get us to the right product? And I think that's where I'm particularly pleased is that the teaming worked exceptionally well. So it was very much a one team approach and everyone embedded into the same process. And that allowed us to be more flexible, more dynamic during the build process, but also have, frankly, really good and frank conversations about what we needed to do. And so that for me was the critical success factor. The wider element of that was also to have it feel familiar. We could have commenting and track changes. So essentially using some things that were in concepts that were familiar to our auditors through using Microsoft products, but actually other audit systems don't allow us to do that in system. I think the biggest outcome for me was that we have a collective team that is willing to use a system, is actually enthusiastic about using a system. I've worked in audit now for close on 25 years, and I've never really found a solution for an audit system that across all of those organisations I've worked in, across the teams that I've worked in, that has really been particularly satisfying. And that's the feedback we've had from the audit teams. So what we really wanted to do was be able to build something that was an intuitive user interface, that was adaptable, and that really addressed those pain points that I referenced previously. And so from that point of view, that was the biggest outcome, was that we were able to build something essentially that our audit teams wanted to use, that our audit teams had asked for, and effectively they designed through those auditor journeys to be able to realise those goals and those aims was the biggest outcome for me. We're now more into evolution rather than revolution, I would say. I think the past 6 to 9 months have been revolutionary. I think we're now at the stage whereby we're looking to evolve. However, what I would say is we're probably looking to evolve at a fairly fast pace as well. So there is an element whereby we will refine some of the areas that we've already built. And then really what we're looking to do is take the functionality to further, probably to engage more with other systems, ensure that we're being able to ingest data from other systems, and then build that into our process. I think further to that, we certainly have opportunities from an AI perspective to begin to build more AI into the system, and really then harness some of the efficiencies that we can take from AI into the audit process. So probably a bit around functionality, a bit around evolving what we've done, and then the more revolutionary part would be just integrating AI a bit further into the system.
So thank you, Stuart. Hopefully next time he might be able to join us. And now moving on to the next part of the session, where I'll ask Kevin to kindly join me on the stage. Kevin leads the Appian Center of Excellence at NatWest. Thank you, Kevin. So we will go through just some further questions about this project. So it's been a great success. How would you summarize the impact the project had for you?
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say that with your help, it's generated a very successful delivery. I think there's a lot of excitement around the launch of the application. There's quite a few outcomes, actually, some that have kind of just been touched on, but we've built change and transformation capability within internal audit. They didn't have that before, and that's no small feat in itself. But also simultaneously, we've built capability in the Appian COE within NatWest. So we've learned from people working on that project, but also bringing the learning from doing that delivery back into the wider COE to apply across our other processes and projects. So that was really good as well. And I think that's also shifted internal audit's view or relationship on technology. As you can tell, before they've used off-the-shelf systems, they've felt constrained. It's been a means to an end, whereas now I think it's repositioned internal audit's relationship with technology and how they see technology as part of what they do going forward, which I think is really interesting. There was a cost of delay avoidance, so that was also great. And of course, we ended up with a really good, great system. So yeah, some really good outcomes.
Great, fantastic. So some outcomes for internal audit as well as for the Center of Excellence. How does this solution compare to other use cases that NatWest delivered on Appian, in your opinion?
So I think it's more comprehensive than a lot of the other use cases we had. It brings together a much richer collection of functionality and end-to-end business process and capability, I guess. So it's a far more comprehensive system than something we've built before, which is great for us internally, and obviously a great result for internal audit. I think we've used a lot more of the advanced features, which has also been exciting for us as a Appian COE, but also great for our users and their experience. So that's really good as well.
Great, absolutely, thank you. How did you go about getting buy-in from auditors and stakeholders throughout this project? What helped get that buy-in?
So because the delivery times were relatively short and demanding, the key first step for success was an early engagement where we had Appian come in and work with the auditors. So the auditors sort of shared their vision for what they wanted, as well as the pain points, and they'd gone through that auditor journey exercise, and they were able to bring all of that to Appian. Appian took the time to work with them doing some prototyping and actually trying to understand what that vision was and bring it to life in a way, which in turn fed back and helped internal audit evolve their thinking. So I think that was critical. I think it also allowed us to sort of commit as a shared accountability for the delivery. So it was never something that Appian came to us and said, this is us, we'll take care of this and we'll just throw it over the fence afterwards. Not in those words, but it was always approached truly as a partnership where there was consideration for building our own capability, the longevity of the application after you guys had left us, but also taking internal audit through that upskilling and training on their own change journey as well. So using those agile methods of Sprint Zero, bringing regular sprints in, demos, playbacks, really brought the program to life, but it also helped create that shared understanding that then we were able to maintain throughout the life of the program, which was critical. Yeah.
Great, and that experience, that journey lasted from 2023 up until now, when those prototypes started. Great. What can internal audit, in your opinion, do with Appian that was previously too difficult?
I mean, there was a list. There was a list. But mainly it was each of the elements couldn't be done cohesively. So fieldwork, planning, reporting, it was all very difficult. It was all very disparate. It was very hard to bring that data together into a process or for them to just undertake the activities of doing an internal audit in an intuitive way. So, but also it constrained their vision because they were tied to a commercial off-the-shelf product, which meant that they couldn't go their own way. They weren't in control of their own destiny. So if they wanted to evolve as an audit function, they were constrained. and that was quite frustrating for them as well. So.
Okay. Previously, you implemented and you presented on the stage as well your solutions on change governance. Now that you have change governance and internal audit implementations in Appian, and you have risks and issues data within Appian Data Fabric, what is the value of having that data within Appian for you?
Oh, it's massive. Yeah, it's great. It's allowing us to think about the use cases that were previously in the too hard bucket. It's allowed us to think about how do we bring those 3 lines of defense together cohesively. Easy thing to say, but notoriously difficult. We've brought in information from risk and other parts of the bank, organizational structures. All of this information we'll be able to bring together and share, which has benefited both functions, both risk and internal audit. It's allowed a different approach as well. The shift to that relationship with technology has allowed us to approach how we improve the business from a more systems thinking approach. How do we digitize an approach rather than just automate something that's manual and replicate that, which is a step change in maturity about how we evolve our business models going forward.
Great, absolutely. What enhancements do you think will need to be done next on the internal audit solution?
Well, there's a list. Yeah, there's a big list, and it is exciting. So I think there's a release that's just gone in around improving the operational reporting within the application, which I think they're very excited about. We'll start to leverage the process HQ. I think that will be coming very shortly. AI will feature quite prominently, and we're looking to consolidate and prioritize those key use cases that will be going first. There'll be some work around audit findings, just as we finesse the system as it starts to get used in anger now as we go into 2025. So yeah, there's a good, healthy list, but what I like about that list is a lot of it is embracing the new capabilities. It's making the application more feature-rich rather than just building and bolting on an incremental change. So yeah, very exciting.
Absolutely, and internal audit can use the leverage capabilities from the Appian platform, including the ones which were mentioned earlier in the keynote. So thank you. Now let's take a look at the questions which were submitted to us.
Oh, you didn't tell me about that.
I'm happy to take the lead on those. What specific hurdles to delivering the project in an agile way did you encounter? I'm happy to take that first if you want.
You can go first.
Sure, absolutely.
A few.
I think one of the hurdles that we encountered in this delivery is giving an early and transparent explanation of the type of the roles that some of our stakeholders will need to perform, and just making sure that they are ready to do so ahead of the project. So doing that in a friendly, educational, consultative manner, and helping people be prepared when the project starts, and answering their questions along the way, I think may have been the biggest exercise. I wouldn't even call it necessarily a hurdle or problem. It's something we just need to do to help sure the clients move fast with Appian delivery. Do you want to add anything in terms of agile hurdles?
Yeah. So I think it was a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
And even if people were not new to agile, I think one of the interesting things was the pace of delivery. So specific to this that I hadn't seen before, the pace of delivery and development was so quick. We built a lag time with UAT. So I think doing a simulation of how UAT should work within that scenario and that pace would have got us to the point where we managed to close that gap a lot quicker. So I think that was a really important learning.
Good. Next one, what were the major challenges you faced while building the solution and migration? For migration, the biggest exercise was to understand the right data that had to be moved, and disqualify the data that is not relevant, not pertinent for migration, and then making sure that it has indeed been moved, making sure nothing has been missed. For the solution itself, I think in my opinion, just making sure that the right priorities are done at the right time, and that there is a balance between immediate priorities and a slightly longer term vision and plan. Anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I guess from our perspective, being a bank, it was the making sure that our governance could keep pace with the rate of change, I guess. I think that's the hidden overhead that we tried to keep away from the core delivery team from having to deal with. But we were able to work in tandem because obviously it required some planning for us to be able to keep in sync and for us not to become a blocker to that delivery. So it wasn't so much a technical challenge, it was more of a governance challenge at times.
Good. Next one, did you have the process fully defined before the start of the project? What other requirements captured did you perform up front? Do you want to answer that first?
You definitely can answer that first.
Okay. Before the start of the project, the process was not fully defined, and that was absolutely fine. There was a vision outlined. The intuitiveness and the flexibility of the solution were called out by Stuart, Myrat, and the other product owners in the team. The overarching process was clear, the moving from audit universe landscape to annual planning, risk assessments, and etc. The details of it were partially clear, partially became clear during the project itself. And what other requirements did you capture to perform up front? I think that the biggest thing we were capturing up front is this capability to make the system intuitive, let people feel as if they're using the software that they're familiar with and go about their ways of working in a bit of a natural and seamless way. And whilst you can't really break it down to the specific 1 or 2 or 3 requirements, it's more of a feel of the system. I think that's the biggest thing that was done before the project.
Yeah, no, I agree. There was a clear vision, and the details less so, but that was fine because, as we said, as we went through the program, the knowledge learned allowed us to iterate and evolve the solution as we went along rather than sort of building a lot of potential technical debt or going down avenues that took us away from where we wanted to be with an intuitive system.
Next one, how was the migration strategy? Did you have to run Appian and legacy simultaneously? The Appian MVP was deployed into production in July, and the legacy of the shelf solution was used for at least a few more months. The in-flight audits were closed in the solution, in the legacy solution. New audits were started in the new solution. So to that extent, both systems have been operational together for a few months. But that was a clear roadmap outlined by Stuart during the delivery. He did want to use the new solution to start the next annual cycle with it, starting from mapping out the audit universe, performing a plan, and being ready to do so about 1 or 2 months before this annual cycle starts. Okay, next one addressed to you. As a COE, how are you dealing with incoming requests from other departments, such as risk, and to adapt and modify new functionalities to the delivered solution?
With great delicacy. We have a fairly modest, considering the estate we have for Appian, we have a modest COE that we flex with contingent workers when we need to and partners. So it varies. It depends on priority, the amount of work and the value of that work, and also how quickly they make funding available. So there's no black or white answer. We do run a prioritization. So we have a pipeline backlog, and we run that as you would with any other sort of centralized function where you have to take some priority calls with the business and negotiate funding and resources, just like you would mobilize in any other project or ongoing art.
Maybe one or two more. How did you narrow down what you would include in your MVP product? Stuart and the product owners had a clear vision, and at the beginning, when we performed this partner-like approach in Sprint Zero to outline the key priorities and narrowed them down, we focused and balanced two things primarily. How much of the main core part of the workflow in the end-to-end flow they would like to achieve by the phase of the MVP, and how much of this is not an immediate priority and could theoretically wait. Some examples clearly included reporting and risk assessments. And we balance that, of course, with the regular Appian Customer Success delivery method, including our velocity forecast, etc. Anything you want to add about the MVP and prioritization?
I think so. So I think obviously it was the start of the change journey for internal audit. So because we did have hard deadlines, I think it helped to articulate what an MVP meant. And I think I said, imagine everything stops in July and everyone walks away and you're left with whatever's there. That's it. If you hold that in your mind, then that's going to really help focus where you need to prioritize the time and how you're going to prioritize the work. I said it might not be the case, but that's really where you need to envisage what an MVP really means and crystallize it. That imagine if that's all we can do and everyone walks away, that's what you've got to do the work, and use that as your guide and your North Star to help with that prioritization and focus. And I think it really worked. I think I got some good feedback from the team because it did put the challenge into a much simpler context of what we were asking them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the team structure for this delivery, split of NatWest and Appian resources and location? It was an Appian-led delivery blended with NatWest's developers. We had 4 full-time consultants from Appian, part-time oversight at the TDM and architect level, and 2 developers from your team?
Yeah, and a technical delivery manager working with sort of our security and the other technical teams and infrastructure teams in the bank around the integrations and governance.
And during the project, one of the developers relocated from India to the UK.
Did he likes it that much?
And is now a trusted internal audit partner.
Yes.
Okay, maybe last one addressed to you. NatWest are regular speakers at Appian Europe. What is the secret to the success of Kevin's Appian team?
Wow. Being lucky, having really good team, to make sure that whenever you're planning anything, don't just focus on the delivery. You have to think about how it's going to be successful as an ongoing capability. And that includes building up capability in the business and with your own team. So, as I said at the beginning, when we said it was very much a partnership model, it wasn't Appian committing to deliver this, it was Appian committing to delivering this with us. That meant that they had considered the fact that our team would need to be part of that blended core team, which took trust on both sides. And it meant that we were able to be very clear and confident when we got to the end of the journey that we were left with something that we could keep as a successful model. So now we do have this great application that we can flex to however internal audit decide to go or evolve their business model. And we hope you will be presenting again in the future. I think that's a hat trick for me. It's like Glastonbury. I missed one.
Thank you.